So why can't we be part of the structure? Why can't the operations can't be the part of the structure? How do you expect football to be better in South Africa if the people who walk the path are not part of it?
When they made me retire, because I was very vocal, we need a gender equality. We need to be paid the same. I'm getting 400, I'm playing for a national team. I'm getting 3.5 for my game. I don't even have a signing on fee coming to the capable talk. They'll tell you we have 50,000. Wait! 50,000, that time I'm living in the shack.
Word on the street. FisMaz show. What's the word on the street? Like who got the beats that be killing the game? Who's up on the screen? Who playing who? What's the score on the sheet? Fiso the Prince got him taking a seat. Got the legends giving us the 411. Fiso Maz from the 031. No hating sports and entertainment when we got it all and we're the only ones. And after all that action, never have a dripping hot fashion. Drippy on some rich municipal stylists, soak up with passion. If it's giving us less, then we never settle. Make sure you pull up and bring all your medals. Sit back and relax, let's go. It's FisMaz bringing you the FisMaz show. It's the FisMaz show. It's the FisMaz show. It's the FisMaz show. It's the FisMaz show.
What up, y'all? JP Duminier, and you're listening to my main man on the FisMaz show.
Hello, everyone. Getting ready for another episode of the FisMaz show. You would have heard that particular recording at the start of the show, and I tell you what, things are always heated there at SAFA, and I'm not sure exactly how things will pan out going forward, but we can look back at how things have gone. Yeah, I even brought out the shirt today because I need to make sure what's because and in better as in cool. But you know what? Let me not talk too much. Let me introduce them one by one. I'm gonna start with the man on the top right there, Nqobile Ndlovu, a man known for cash and sport, one of the most incisive, really incisive Twitter handles out there, a man who's really passionate about the business of sport. Yeah, Kacheng, Benyati, Komnandi. And look, I was telling him off air, you know, whenever people talk about Kacheng, they always think about Ismail, Kacheni, Humnandi. But yeah, welcome to Nqobile, welcome to Menzi Ngcobo on the bottom right. Menzi, of course, a seasoned football administrator, a man who's worked closely with me throughout, especially all our soccer episodes of this particular podcast. A man who's always got his ear on the ground. Former Nazi Lions, a man who's worked as an intermediary, an agent, whatever they call it these days. He represented some really big players in the South African top flight. So yeah, welcome to Menzi. You and Nqobile won't know each other, so I don't think you know each other, but at least you get a bit of a background. And then, of course, the main man himself, the troublemaker, Robin Duke Madlala from the Daily Sun, a man who's needs no introduction with regards to the footballing world. He's laughing because he knows that, hey, he's going to be getting emails today. You know what? Let's leave it for another day. But yeah, firstly, I think let's start with you, Mo, because yeah, it's your first time on the show. SAFA, as a South African football fan, take me just through what you've made of the organization over the past decade and over the past 26 years.
So Fis, thank you so much firstly for having me on the show, and good evening to the gents, Robin and Menzi over there as well. So for me, I've looked at SAFA from a purely financial point of view. I did a 10-year review of the state of SAFA and the finances, going all the way back to prior to the 2010 World Cup, where things were looking very rosy. I mean, finances were good. I mean, in 2009, SAFA had 296 million in revenue. 2010, 374 million. 2011, obviously after the World Cup and after the bonuses from FIFA and so on, all the way up to 429 million rand in revenue. So things were looking good in in the 2010s, 2009. But Danny Jordan gets appointed as president of SAFA. I think that's in 2012. and yeah, things start taking a bit of a turn. So it's an interesting organization. They launched Vision 2022 also in 2012. I think 2013 they launched that, and they set themselves some targets. So you'd like to ask yourself now in 2022 whether they've met those targets or not. And I guess maybe we can get into that now with the rest of the gents and what things are looking like now in terms of the financial state of the organization.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the interesting things that you mentioned, I mean, it would have been nice to actually pick up with regards to, I guess, what Dr. Nqobile said at the very top and Pusha Modise, but let's actually get stuck into the financial aspect, because I think we can lead with that into our next subject around the presidency, around, I guess, how the organization has gone, and have we taken any forward steps.
Good evening to you, my brother, and to the guests. Like everything in life, there has to come a sell-by date. If you have products on the shelf that expire after a certain period of time, even people and in leadership positions and in positions of governance are not immune to that rule or rule of thumb. Firstly, let me touch on the honorarium issue with regards to the payment that the NSC members received. Number one, honorariums by nature, if you look at corporate governance and you look at things like the King 4 report that prescribe on payment structures to board members and to governing body members and NEC structures, honorariums by nature are not supposed to be more than salaries. So you cannot back pay an honorarium. Nqobile is nodding, so I must be saying something right. Honorariums are not supposed to be equal to salary in terms of their payment. So you can't back pay people for bonuses that are belonging to a different financial year. So there's something wrong in terms of the flouting of the rules in the system there, following proper governance structure and governance procedures. Back to Danny. I think Danny, by virtue of the type of person he is, he's earned himself quite a reputation in sports circles as an experienced veteran administrator who obviously does things in a certain way and was at some point regarded as a messiah of administration. That's why the ANC sort of sent him down to the Eastern Cape to try and sort things out in the Bay there, because of his experience with governance and governance structures. But my issue with situations like that is that after a certain period of time, you tend to lose touch and focus with reality and the changing of the guard. And in situations like that, it's up to the NEC structures that govern these national associations to see the transition through, to realize when it's time for the change of guard to happen. And if that NEC is hoodwinked by continuity and stability given to them by veteran administrators, that continuity cannot happen. So you tend to implode as an organization and you suffer from your own successes. And that's exactly what's happening to SAFA. And SAFA is not the only organization that's suffering from that. There's a series of organizations in this country that is suffering from that disease.
Yeah, quite telling, that statement with regards to, I guess, suffering from disease. I mean, we've seen it with athletics. We've seen it with so many organizations in South Africa where you feel there's certain people that are holding on too long. I mean, it's sad, really, with regards to, I guess, almost like a trend around the country. And a lot of people, even speaking from a government point of view, about give young people a chance to lead, give young people the opportunity to realize their potential, and not wait till they're 60, 70 before handing them power. And then what happens is they also want to hold on for 20 years after that and not give the other young people. So it becomes a kind of a cycle.
Yeah, it becomes a cyclical thing. And you're right. I mean, if you look at just even the rules that was stipulated when Doc was speaking in that press conference, where some of the rules were stated that you have to have been a member in the LFAs or in regional structures for 10 years before you can contest a leadership role. Those things they're not helpful. They don't really allow for young blood to come in, and it allows for gatekeeping to take place. And this isn't necessarily to say that that's exactly what they're doing, but when you start putting impediments in place for people to even put their foot in the door. You only allow for certain people to qualify just by virtue of having been around that environment for a long time. You look at the situation even with the PSL, where you've had a CEO who's been an interim CEO for almost 10 years now. You know, you have to ask the question, why is that the case? Certain figures, if you look even in government, who are reaching what, you know, by government's own standards would be retirement age, but still in leadership positions. So yeah, you'd have to ask the question why. And unfortunately, the people who are tasked with answering the question, also the people who are in charge. So it's a bit of a difficult situation to be in.
Yeah, very difficult. And
Can I maybe jump in?
Yeah, you can pick up the Duke.
You know, it's very, very, you know, with these rules, you know, it's very fun. Even President Patrice Motsepe can run as a SAFA president, but he can run for president. But when it comes to SAFA, he can't run because he hasn't served in any whatever Ep5 SAFA required. It's just an embarrassment. You know what I'm saying? That's why even Chipampeng is, you know, he said he was nominated by his own region to run for SAFA, but you know, 2 weeks ago he pulled out. You know, because he knew that everything there. It's very funny because everything is just settled, you know, towards one man. That is Danny Jordan. You know, the whole region, 52 region, are all in favor of him for continuity. I'm telling you, 80% of the region I said he must continue. Only the one in Vembe, Utugela, and also in Pretoria, that is held by Sorry Motlabeng, that said we will not vote for him. But the rest, they all say we are vote for Danny Jordan, and then he also can't count for the NEC members. You know, and also they come from SAFA associate members, the SANASU and SAFA, Southern Football Coaches Association. So, I mean, we're going to the election on the 25th. Everything is just casting tone for the New York for continuity. Because, and then you have to ask yourself, why these honorarium were brought early this time? That's why the question is, why they were brought now just 1 month away for the election? And then again, you look to talk about this election. Now we've got a government comments that is running. I mean, that is producing all these guys candidates. And then you know what happened? Everyone, if you pass that, you know, that government comments, it's only got 14 days to campaign. 14. How on earth? I mean, 14 days. What are we gonna do with 14 days to go all this thing? Where all these regions are already on the side of the New Town? You cannot. It's impossible. It's impossible for anyone to succeed.
Menzi, you want to pick up? Oh no!
Let me jump.
No, well, yeah, sure. Go ahead, Menzi.
Guys, I have to really bite through my tongue when I say.
Come on,
let it out. I'll tell you why.
Let it out, boy.
No, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I have to bite through my tongue. Some of us, just like some of the people in that presser that put Dr. Khumalo headline, and just like all the other people that have been writing, going on to social media and chipping in, everybody, if you saw, hear me out. Everybody has a vested interest. Everybody has a vested interest. We have a vested interest.
All right, so maybe just pick up there. I mean, obviously, Menzi is trying to make a point with regards to, I guess, the interest at heart, and we'll allow Menzi to come back in. But you can just pick up and potentially just take us through what you were planning to say just before Menzi spoke then.
Yeah. So Fiso, before this conversation, I went and looked at the honoraria figures, well, alongside the executive allowances figures for the last since Daniel Don took over. And Daniel Don took over in 2013, by the way. In 2013, the honoraria and allowances figure was 7.9 million rand, right? And as Menzi said, the honoraria figure shouldn't exceed what your allowances figure should be, because this honoraria figure, for people who don't know, is an ad hoc figure, and it's arrived at by the NEC. So they decide for themselves what they will pay themselves, and it's not a figure that's set in stone. It's arrived at by the NEC on a yearly basis. So in 2013 it was 7.9.
Wait, I'm trying to understand something. So you're saying they come up with this figure and they're like, yeah. We're gonna give each other this.
Yes.
Is that
That's
normal practice, or is that
ordinarily it wouldn't be, because there would be a executive remuneration is arrived at by a formula. There has to be a formula that comes into place, and there's a board usually that would decide on what these figures would be. Now the problem is with SAFA, the NEC of SAFA is essentially they're the judge, jury, and executioner within that body. So they decide what essentially they would pay themselves. And yeah, as Menzi said, as Duke said as well, these figures are decided by themselves. In 2021, it was 4.7 million. 2020, it was 3.6 million. 2019, 3.7 million. 2018 was large, 8.2 million. And let's remember what happened in 2018. That was the year of the elections as well, when Nqobile lost. So the figures have swayed and flowed depending on what's happening politically within SAFA, and this isn't to say, I mean, this isn't a platform where I'm going to say, you know, we know where that money went, but it's very interesting to see that during election periods the figure tends to jump and then it comes back down. So that's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And you know what, like you said, you know, we're not going to jump to any conclusions. We can merely only speak facts here on this podcast. Menzi, I'm sure your connections are a bit better now. And I know you wanted to make a point because I could see how passionate you were about it. So I'm going to give you the platform now to go ahead and don't bite your tongue this time.
Okay, so I hope I'm clearly audible right now. So here's my shot, right? The people that contest these positions have a vested interest, a selfish, narrow vested interest. None of them truly have the best interest of sports in this country at heart. Some of these people, if not all of them, Ndlovu will correct me if I'm wrong, are one, politically connected. Two, they are employers in their other places of work, meaning they hold very influential positions. So they determine what happens in many other spaces within the sporting fraternity. So they don't just decide what happens at SAFA. They also have their hands in regions politically, in provinces politically, in other sporting federations as well. So it's difficult to say, even I don't believe Uriah Lidwaba is the answer to South African football. Hell, I don't even believe that Dr. Khumalo is the answer to South African football, nor is Shakes Mashaba. I feel that the answer to South African football lies in having a shared value strategy, where we allow people who are adequately qualified to contribute to the conversation that will develop sports in this country. People like ourselves, people that are administrators by profession, that have studied the trade, and a combination of former players who have played the game and understand how it's like to be on the field. Now, the problem here, Fiso, is that you have people that have played the game. You have people that have studied. You have people that have served in the struggle politically. These three types of people are not singing from the same hymn sheet. And that's why you find politicking, and that's why you find situations like we have now. The next 3 years of SAFA is going to be the same as the past 3 years of SAFA. We will not see improvements because sports is not only dead at national level, sports is dead at schools. So there's no sports being played at schools. There's only a certain elite group of schools that are playing sports. Where are we going to get development from? What happened to SASPA? Duke must tell us. What happened to the organization that runs schools, sports in every single district, in every single corner of this country? Dead. How are we supposed to develop the next Dr. Khumalo if those structures are not in place? How will Dr. Khumalo and Shakes Mashaba be able to identify those nooks and crannies or those gaps in the system? Do they have the skill set to be able to use organizational skills to find out how to solve those problems? I don't believe they do. But people like us will not qualify to contest for those positions because we don't serve in the LFAs. We haven't served in the LFA structures for 10 years. We are closed out of the system. The very same people that are fighting the system are the same people that voted this constitution into power, that gives the NEC almost carte blanche to make decisions on behalf of the entire country. That's where the problem lies.
Duke, over to you. The challenge is there. Menzi's laid it down.
And then even if you want to go to the LFAs, the doors are closed because they know that you're going to come here. What's the next step? You want to challenge the for president? You know, at some point, for me, I don't know where we're going with the next 4 years, you know, because I've been chatting to the president. He said, you know, he still, you know, want to improve football in this country. With Ndlovu Madlala as his, as his CEO, he mentioned so many things he achieved with the sponsorship, Hollywood, you know, the formation of the Women's League, you know, Ep5, you know. So he's happy with that, you know, for the past couple of years, Bafana reaching the AFCON, the quarterfinal in 2019, Banyana qualifying for the World Cup, you know, reaching the final AFCON in 2018 in Ghana, and then also we are going to the Morocco, in July. So he said, you know, as much as they can criticize him, but so many things that SAFA have done under his stewardship, and also credit the current CEO of SAFA, of which is Ndlovu Madlala. And he's, you know, I even asked him about the issue of Dennis Mambu, of the press conference that Dennis Mambu had. That he was part of on Tuesday. That is so great because things as a CEO that he was supposed to do, even the COO of SAFA or the leader Monyepao, it was his duty for him to appoint the leader Monyepao, but he couldn't. Even the general, even the commercial manager of SAFA, of which now is Amanda Dlamini, that was the duty of the CEO, but he couldn't. So he said, guys, I've tried my best, and then there's more to come in the next coming 4 years.
Yeah, look,
I would ask a question then about you know, KPIs. What are the KPIs, you know, involved in management of such an institution as SAFA? Because if you set yourself a KPI of Vision 2022, where you said you always wanted to be in the top 3 of African rankings, top 20 in world rankings, launch a vibrant schools football program, strengthen women's football, increase internal revenues. Bafana are currently ranked 66th in the world. We have not been in the top 3 of African rankings. We haven't qualified for tournaments. So what are the KPIs that have been met? And if that is what you judge yourself on in terms of your deliverables, then the answer would be the fact that SAFA has unfortunately failed since Vision 2022 was launched. And that was their own KPI. No, it wasn't anyone else's KPI. You know, so it's a tough question. It's a tough one to hear, Duke, when that is the answer. But when it's met against deliverables that you set yourself, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't meet the mustard. You know, and there's a bigger issue that South African sport has to deal with, you know, is the fact that 60% of all South African primary schools don't have an organized school sports program of any kind. You know, only 7% of primary schools play rugby, 2% hockey, you know, 25% play cricket, 1% swim. And unfortunately, at that same time, football couldn't account for what their percentage of participation was because the administrators didn't submit the numbers in time to government. This was for the eminent persons group report that government put out last year. So when we can't even account for how many kids are playing football in the country to the government, I don't know whether we're meeting these targets and whether these KPIs are actually realistic and what the basis would be for another appointment going forward beyond, you know, the current tenure.
And I saw Menzi looking away there. I saw Duke was interested in coming in and getting stuck into, I guess, what Nqobile is, some of the points Ngo made, and some fascinating points. Duke, you're chomping at the bit, so have a bit of a dip, or is it Menzi? And
brother, Nqobile, I applaud you, my brother, for giving us such a beautiful statistical picture of where we are in terms of school sports and participation. And I know you don't know me from above, so my brother, but let me tell you a little bit about what I do. I'm a qualified physical education and school sports specialist. I'm currently the head of football and the head of chess at Kingsway High School. That's what I do on a day-to-day basis. My brother, I have a front row seat of what you are talking about. A front row seat. Football is dead in schools. That is why they could not submit numbers and figures, because schools are not playing. We have around 100 schools in our district of Umlas, right? I can tell you for a fact, in my township of Kwamakut, none of those schools play sports because the fields are being used by the LFAs that we are talking about. None of those LFAs have any participation link between themselves and the schools. School sports is dead. Two, the schools themselves, which are quintile 4, quintile 3 schools, cannot afford to have sports programs because those schools are non-fee paying schools. So there's no budget to pay coaches. There's no budget to have an extramural program for those schools to play sports. But Udeni has the guts to come on any platform and tell us what he has succeeded because Ibafana Bafana qualified for the 2019 quarterfinals in CAF. No ways, my brother. His KPI should be indicated by how many people you are developing. What is the conveyor belt looking like? The conveyor belt is dead. The principals in schools are not interested in developing football. The principals in schools are not interested in applying any piece of the budget towards developing the game. So what do we have? No qualified coaches. We've got teachers that have no interest in the game. We have no SAFA in our schools. And that is a vacant gap that will continue to widen because of governance. So I applaud you, my brother. I have a front row seat to what you're talking about. I can tell you for a fact, the sports in schools is dead. Duke.
Hey, shall I drop Mike and Duke, over to you. Look, we've got 6 minutes left of the show, Duke. So let's try and keep it short and to the point. But I want you to make your point, and no doubt you're always giving us some good stuff. So yeah, over to you.
You know, for me, as I said, with these people who want to challenge the new Dan, can we also try to test them? I don't know. Okay, I saw Mamria, with the formation of Ria Stars. I mean, they produce some of the best players. I have no doubt Nomsa Mahlang can also do the job. But, SAFA is a different animal altogether. I mean, with what Daniel Dan has done in that association, it is difficult to make anyone to succeed, unlike at CAF or SAFA. For me, if I was one of them, I'll just not contest because it doesn't, there will always be this bloated NEC members, those who have been there for years, and then you ask yourself, what have they been doing? So for me, if you want to restructure SAFA, just start from the scratch, remove everybody there, and then let's see, because we also need a very good sound technical committee, because the technical committee that is appointing Bafana coaches right now, I mean, some of those guys there, you just ask yourself, oh my God, when they were doing a headhunting to replace Molefinseki, I mean, last year in March, after he lost his job, and you just look at the list and you say, goodness gracious, why can't, for me, that's why I think also need to strengthen our SAFA. When it comes to the SAFA technical community, we have to ensure that people who are in those seats are people who play the football at highest level. And then none of them, I'm telling you, none of them were, all those people, none of them was part of the 96 World AFCON that we won in South Africa. So I mean, where are we going? That's what I'm saying. Structurally, we need to remove the whole structure, even from the man above, called the Neo Dan, if we want to, put South African football right back to where it belongs. Because I mean, I have been looking at the map, guys, since 2001. We have been on a downward spiral. Bafana, when you look at the cap, it just goes like it's not like, it just goes like this up. We are going downward spiral, because when you look at us, 96 AFCON, 98 we reached the final, 2000 third and fourth playoff, and then after that, everything just went down. So I don't want to talk about what happened to 2006 AFCON, where you couldn't even score a goal. I mean, Bafana has been embarrassing. I don't know what is the turnaround, but as I said, the turnaround has to be structured, and we have to remove the structure that's currently on board right now.
Yeah, closing comments more with regards to, I guess, what you would do. I don't know if you ever wanted to run to be president there, go SAFA, but maybe just a closing thought with regards to, I guess, going forward, what potentially organization could do, or are you following on from Duke? You just tear things down and keep it moving?
No, for me, Fiso, I only have one view with regards to the organization and how things are run. I look at things from a structure point of view. My understanding is that unless we have a top-down or bottom-up structure, which is make sure that the youth are playing, make sure that there's feeder systems from the youth going all the way up to senior level, and there's a coherent system. And make sure that financially this organization is also generating revenue and attracting sponsors, because we can't continue to rely on government grants and national lottery grants and so on and so on. It's just unsustainable. And if we don't get those things right, the legacy of the current incumbent, which looks like will be the incumbent going forward after these elections in 14 days time, I don't see how that changes. And if that's the case, I don't see how South Africa looks any different in terms of football in 5 to 10 years time. It probably looks worse. So yeah, that's my analysis. I'm not here to bash anyone, but I think that we have to be very sober about what the future is and what the current situation is. And the current situation doesn't look good. So we need to change that to get a better picture in the future.
Yeah, I think we can close it there. And 14 days time, by the time you probably listen to this podcast, it could be 13 or 12 days. But I tell you what, still plenty to talk about. It's unfortunate we've got to pack it into half an hour, 40 minutes. But I have a feeling that I'm going to reunite, especially with those two gentlemen. I don't know if you'll want to join us more, but I want to get stuck into that presidency race, the controversy that's been there, what potentially are the incentives for being presidents. Maybe more you can come in there with regards to that. So I think we can do a part 2 if we can all make some time. But yeah, I've got to let you guys go now. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you, gentlemen. It's a wrap for today. See you again soon. The FisMaz Show. We're out.
In DRC, we had to live 5 days with coke and bread only because we couldn't eat their food. Is that not sacrifice?
Right.
So why can't we be part of the structure? Why can't the Sheikhs can't be the part of the structure?
Absolutely.
How do you expect football to be better in South Africa if the people who walk the path are not part of it?